Oh, this is a great story. He was the minor league director when I was drafted in 1976. I was playing semi-pro baseball out in Eureka, California. My dad was at my house. Hank Aaron was the minor league director. I get drafted in the 5th round in 1976. Hank Aaron calls my house. My dad answers the phone. And he says, Mr. Benedict? He said, yeah. He goes, this is Hank Aaron, Atlanta Braves. He says, yeah, right. Hangs up. Hank Aaron, just a true story. Hank calls back, says the same thing. Mr. Benedict, your son Benedict, yeah, right. Hangs up. Hangs up on Hank Aaron. Finally, the 3rd time, he said, Dave, we drafted your son in the 5th round. Please don't hang up, whatever. So I said to my dad's dying day, I said, Dad, you're the only human being in the history of the world in communication that's hung up on Hank Aaron twice on a phone call. But that happened. My dad was in Omaha, Nebraska. After that, my dad called me. I was in Eureka, California, playing for the Humboldt State Crabs, and then flew to Atlanta and worked out, and then signed.
I might say about Hank. I was in the major leagues when he took over the minor leagues, so I didn't really have like direct contact with him, but he came down and talked to me, about hitting every once in a while, but he never came down unless he was invited. I'm sure he was up there a lot of times in his office, Fulton County stand going, what is Murph doing? But he always respected our hitting coaches, and when he came down there and talked to me about hitting, I'd be like in the back of my mind, yeah, you're Hank Aaron now. It's like when I met Ted Williams at the Hall of Fame game one year, guys. Remember we used to do that? He watched all the games on TBS. And he goes, Dale Murphy, yeah, good to meet you. This is Ted Williams. You got to get a better pitch to hit. I'm like, you're Ted Williams, man. That's easy for you to say. You struck out 20 times a year. Anyway.
You mentioned maybe Snit could shed some light on this a little bit because he called all the time. We lost Phil Negro in the last year. And ladies and gentlemen, maybe the finest Hall of Famer, maybe of all time that you would ever come across in a nice person.
And it was pretty amazing to have Hank and Nuxie. I mean, some really great individuals. Let me just ask Benny this. What did Nuxie say about you in the Hall of Fame?
Every place I ever went with Phil, and we did some charity stuff every year, the first thing he said, he goes, I'm not in the Hall of Fame without him.
Fans, you're watching On Deck with Tyler Redmond. Welcome into On Deck as always. Thank you so much for checking out the video. I really do appreciate it. While you're here, do me a favor, like this video, subscribe to this channel, and hit the bell for notifications so that you can stay up to date with everything going on with the Atlanta Braves. And today we have some pretty big news. We're going to get into that in just a second. But I wanted to start tonight talking about last night. Of course, Michael Soroka, we talked about plenty on this channel, and rightfully so, because there has been a lot to talk about. Obviously, his journey to the, back to the majors, his debut again this year. There's been a lot to talk about with Michael Soroka, so I wanted to talk about his performance last night because I know with the news today it very well may get overlooked, and I don't think it should be. We want to talk about that, so here's what we're going to say about it. Michael Soroka, again, his debut last night, did not go the way I think everybody hoped it would, at least from the fan perspective. You hope he comes in, throws, perfectly, has a perfect game. I mean, that's what you want. You hope that he at least comes out and wins the ball game for you. That was not the case. But I thought overall he pitched very well, which is something that I think is going to get overlooked when you lose, like the Braves lost last night. He did throw 6 innings, which is a good sign. He gave up 4 runs, but that's not indicative of what I saw, and I think what you saw. He only scattered 5 hits across those 5 innings. One of those hits just so happened to be a 3-run homer. So at the end of the day, you hate to see him lose in his debut back, but I thought it was encouraging for his future. I thought it was reminiscent of what he was in 2019, and I think it could very well show signs of what he can be for the Braves for the next couple of months, especially considering where the Braves starting rotation sits as we speak. So I thought it was a very good sign to see Soroka not only pitch last night, but for most parts of his appearance, pitch well. Again, one mistake's not going to be representative of the entire start to me. I know some people were upset that the bullpen didn't hold it down last night, but we saw instant feedback. We saw Lucas Luetge was designated for assignments. If you didn't catch that is the case. And of course, he did not have a very good appearance last night either. But ultimately, you hope to see Soroka do well. You hope to see him only build off of what he did last night. But the real story going into today wasn't so much Michael Soroka. It was, again, Lucas Luetge being let go after that 7-2 loss last night, where Luetge actually gave up 3 earned runs himself in the late innings in only a third of an inning. He only recorded 1 out. So that was a rough patch. But what it gave us is this announcement, and this is the one that I think everybody in the chat is excited for. That is, and in case you missed it, AJ Smith-Shawver, who some of you know, some of you may not know. He's a very young guy. It wouldn't surprise me at all if this is a brand new face for some of you, but he's been a guy who has torn through the minor leagues, and we're going to talk about that in just a second. But he got called up today, so allow me to introduce you to him. He's a right-handed pitcher. He was drafted in the 7th round back in 2021, number 4 prospect for the Braves. So he's highly anticipated prospect for the Braves. He began the season in high A, got all the way to Gwinnett, and now has been called up. Not a lot of time in any location, really. Here's the breakdown of that. So, he, again, 7th round draft pick, but he's got a 1.09 ERA in the minors this season. Take a look at the breakdown of his time in the minors, though. He's got a 0 ERA in high A ball. That's at the bottom. That was in Rome. He only had 14 innings pitched there, only 3 games. In Double A, he has a 0 ERA as well. He only pitched 7 innings in Double A, tore through that. That was only 2 games. And then in Triple A, he only threw 12 innings and had a 3 ERA. He did give up 8 hits and give up a homer in Triple A, but that's not too bad if I do say so myself. So my thoughts on this, across the entirety of the minors, he had 33 innings pitched and a 1.09 ERA. That's this season. Now, what do I expect him to do in the early stages of his major league career? And this is where I want you to slow down a little bit. As good as he's been in the minors, you're talking about moving into the majors. Do I think he's going to be a starter? Do I think he's going to be in the bullpen? That's one of the biggest questions right now. What do they look for him to be? In my opinion, I think he's going to be in the bullpen, at least to start out. And that's not negative. I mean, this is a guy who's 20 years old and getting a call up to the majors. Any major league appearance he can get, I'm sure he will take. But also realize the Braves aren't in need of a starting pitcher as much as they were last week. Okay, when Dylan Dodd was going through it. They kind of have their rotation set for right now, at least until Fried and Wright come back. They have Elder, who of course is on the mound tonight. They have Strider. They have Morton. They have Soroka. They do have a starting rotation going as of right now. And don't forget about Schuster there. So they have their 5 that they're going to roll with, I believe. Even with Soroka's struggle last night, I believe those are the 5 that they are going to roll with. That all said, there is some opportunity here for young guys like AJ Smith-Shawver. We've seen a few call-ups. We've seen Derek Rodriguez, Pudge's son, got called up the other day. We've seen a few of these guys get called up and being given opportunities. That's because the bullpen hasn't exactly been lights out this season. That's where a lot of young guys, especially early on in their careers, find time in the majors. And that's where AJ Smith-Shawver finds himself. Now, if you don't believe that, take a look at what he's done in the minors. Again, he's only pitched a few games in the minors, and I'll put this full screen back up for you so you can just take a look at his numbers throughout the minor leagues. The 0 ERA in Double-A, that may impress you, and it should impress you because it's pretty good, but realize that's only 7 innings pitched. So he had 2 appearances in Double-A and only pitched 7 innings total. So you're talking long relief style innings there. Not to say that that's bad, but he's being groomed right now, I think, more towards a reliever. Could he be a starting pitcher one day? Sure. But some guys find their best numbers being from the pen. And right now, that's where I think he's succeeding for the most part. Now, granted, in high A ball, he was a starter, no doubt about it. In Double A, though, they really started grooming towards that because they saw his success, and he's got really high strikeout numbers. His strikeout per 9 is 12.3. The good news on that end is his walk numbers are really down. He's only got 3.3 walks per 9. He's averaging over a strikeout per inning. He's averaging a walk every third inning. So those are really good numbers, especially for like a reliever. If you're wondering Tyler, what kind of identity does this pitcher have? What does he look like on the mound? He's described as having a 90s, mid to higher up 90s fastball. That's pretty standard. He's got a nice slider, and he's got a really slow curve. So it should be a pretty good pitch mix to start out. But look, we don't know much about him. Unless you follow the Double-A Braves and the Triple-A Braves on a regular basis, it's hard to know much about these guys. Also realizing how are these guys going to do once they're integrated into the major leagues, because it's a big difference. And it's, now granted, Oakland might not be that much of a difference, but it is a big difference entering the major leagues. Does he make an appearance tonight? I think that depends on what the score looks like. I think if it's not to say a wash, but if it's a 10-2 or even if the A's are up 7-2 like last night, that's when I think you'll see him. And I definitely think he's coming out of the pen. They wouldn't have brought him up today if that wasn't the case, in my opinion. I don't believe that they would have called him up to pitch today if he was going to be a starter. They would have waited until that day came. They could keep Luetge in the mix to some degree if they wanted to. But after last night's appearance for Luetge, I mean, everybody has a bad day, but when you give up 3 earned runs and you record 1 out, that's tough. So I think this is a really good chance for Shawver here to really flourish and maybe even hang around throughout the season. So we'll see, but even if this is just a showcase, I'm excited for it. I know you guys are too. We're going to get into what you guys want to talk about here in just a second. I do have a super chat from Jonathan Collins, who says he's my #1 fan, so thank you, Jonathan. Really do appreciate that. I know we're going to have a lot of questions tonight. I really do, but remember, super chats do get your priority in the chat. They get you pushed to the top of the line, and I just wanted to make sure you knew that. Also, remember to go check out our friends at FOCO who have a Spring Essentials line. Guys, they have plenty of things you ought to go check out. They have swim trunks. They have regular shorts. They have shirts. They have hats. They have bobbleheads. They have everything you could ever want with a FOCO logo on it. They have all kinds of stuff. And guys, they are a leading manufacturer of merchandise for fan bases, not just the Braves. If you have a favorite football team, if you have a favorite basketball team, shout out to the Miami Heat who won Game 7 last night. They have you covered with pretty much anything. So click the link in the description below to purchase stuff from FOCO. Plenty of merchandise. I really encourage you to at least go check out the listings and see what they got, because you won't be disappointed. Now, with that all said, let's go ahead and jump into the chat. Again, really do appreciate you guys checking out the channel, and do me a favor, like the video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell for notifications if you have not already. Yasuki Knight tunes in. He says hello. Jonathan tunes in. He says hello. Chris Kaysen says, huge news. AJ breaks into the majors like this. Yeah, I mean, guys, not everybody breaks into the majors on a planned arrival. I don't think this was planned at all by the Braves, but I also don't think they planned him to break through high A, double A, and triple A in the span of, a month and a half, 2 months. So, he's forced the issue. And I think that's the best thing we can say about this kid, is he has made his presence known. And if that's the case, then I am all for seeing him pitch in the major leagues. And whether that's in the bullpen or the starting rotation, it very well could be a path to the starting rotation eventually. If anybody remembers Spencer Strider, he was another one of these guys who forced the issue, got time in the bullpen, and then was so dominant in the majors that he became a starter. There was a time where I disagreed with Strider being in the starting rotation because he only had a couple of pitches. He threw really hard. It wasn't necessarily the standard of a starting pitcher. It wasn't what we were accustomed to, in my opinion. Boy, was I wrong on that one. So it very well could be a path for Shawver to make it to the starting rotation, but I would also argue that there are a lot of guys he's going to have to jump the hurdle over to make it to those top 5. Again, they have some pretty steep competition when you're talking about Strider, when you're talking about Morton, who's not going anywhere until he retires, if we're honest. Bryce Elder, who's the National League ERA leader. Max Fried, Kyle Wright, both injured right now, but are coming back. Michael Soroka, who finally did just come back, and as a former All-Star, I think could have a very good year once he gets his legs underneath him. And, of course, Jared Schuster. Jared Schuster would probably be your, weakest link in that list that I just mentioned. But even then, you have 2 dominant starting pitchers who have had a lot of success with the Braves coming back from injury. So it's going to be tough for anybody to break into that 5-man rotation. You could argue with me about the 6-man if the Braves just wanted to. I don't see them doing that mid-stride. I don't see them doing that mid-season. I think that's something that the offseason is for to discuss. I don't see the Braves doing that. But what this should give you is some confidence because, I just mentioned about Charlie Morton potentially retiring. That's coming up at some point. Where do the Braves go from there? Do they go to free agency? Do they go to options within? At least you can consider the fact that the Braves do have options within. Jared Schuster is one. This guy, AJ Smith-Shawver, very, very well may be. But they have a few guys that are in the pipeline that may not get recognized by, the top 100 list or whatever the case may be. A little secret for you, neither did Vaughn Grissom, right? And we've seen what kind of bat he was when he came up. So I want you to realize that there are still some gems throughout the Braves farm system. Even though the farm system isn't near as highly ranked as it used to be, there are still some there. They're a little harder to find. They're not labeled and bold or highlighted, but they are still out there, and you ought to keep paying attention to that pipeline. Because, guys, I'll be honest with you, we all knew about Michael Harris. I didn't expect the talent level that we saw, not in those early days. I didn't expect the arrival from Double-A or from, obviously Vaughn Grissom was kind of a forced thing because injuries and that kind of thing. Michael Harris got called up because he was ready, right? So this guy very well may be getting called up because he's ready. Otherwise, why not just stick with Luetge or whoever the case may be? So I do want you to consider that and just realize that this farm system still has a few surprises for you. But yeah, huge news today, no doubt about that. AJ Smith-Shawver has been a guy that we've talked about a few times on the channel already, and I think we will continue to talk about. Miles Wallace is confused. Why call the kid up? Will he be in the bullpen or the starting rotation? Well, that's kind of what we've been talking about for the past few minutes, but I'll elaborate a little further since you asked it. The confusion I want you to kind of put to the side because, yes, this guy is labeled starting pitcher, but so was Max Fried when he first got his call up. And, guys, he was in the bullpen. If you don't remember, maybe this will refresh your memory, when Mike Foltynewicz pitched Game 5 in 2019. Sorry to bring up bad memories. But when he pitched Game 5 against the Cardinals and got taken out, the guy that came in for a longer relief was Max Fried, right? And he was a bullpen guy. We didn't know if he was going to ever make it to the starting rotation. All of a sudden, there he is. Now he's leading. I would say he is the ace considered to be on the Braves right now. So I say that to say, is he going to be a bullpen or starter? It's not necessarily decided by this season. Because let's say he's a long relief guy this season, or let's just say he's a reliever this season, period. He very well could be a starter later on in his career. So just realize that. But no, I think he very well could be both. We'll see. I mean, we've seen starters become bullpen relief. We've seen that before. Bryce Wilson, for those of you that aren't following him these days, Bryce Wilson was a guy that the Braves are really trying to make a starter and used him as a starter, but he found his comfort zone really in the bullpen with the Pirates. So it's just time will tell, right? We'll see how it goes, but this is a young kid with a young arm who has all the potential in the world, and we're going to have to follow his career and see where it takes us. But I think for the foreseeable future, he will be out of the pen. I think that's what the necessity of the team is. I think they obviously need bullpen. And which is weird to say, really, because for the past few weeks, I've been telling you we need a starter, right? But all of a sudden, Michael Soroka's ready to go. Jared Schuster's pitching fairly well, and we have all these guys that are doing well, and the starter becomes not so much of a problem. It becomes the bullpen because the bullpen can't keep games together in a lot of times. We didn't expect the issues out of AJ Minter, although he did have a fairly okay appearance last time we saw him. We expected more out of some of these guys. I would say Joe Jimenez is one of those guys. We expected more out of Luetge. At least the Braves did. I won't say we did, but the Braves did. There are guys like that the Braves expected more out of that they haven't gotten. And arguably, it's the flip side of that in the starting rotation, because I don't know how many of you expected Jared Schuster to be pitching in the starting rotation this year. You know, maybe in spring training when he was competing with Dylan Dodd, I think he's almost exceeded expectations, any expectations that you could have given Jared Schuster. And same goes for Bryce Elder. Bryce Elder wasn't even in the conversation at the beginning of spring training. All of a sudden, he's the National League ERA leader. So just keep that in mind. I mean, there's as much as we don't have in the pen, it's starting to really show the guys we have, the abilities of the guys we have in the starting rotation. Again, one of those being Jared Schuster, who I think, you know, on a lot of teams would have been given the go from the beginning. But he was competing for that fifth spot, which tells you how much we've lost. I mean, no doubt about it, we've lost a ton in the starting rotation. No doubt about that. Obviously, Fried and Wright going down is never a good thing. But what does it say about the organization, really, that with all the guys that are hurt, we've been able to manage this and get past this? It says a lot about the coaching. It says a lot about the organization as a whole. It says a lot about the way that the Braves handle themselves, the way that they handle problems. And, of course, once the trade deadline gets close and guys seem to be more available, I believe Alex Anthopoulos will get on the phone and will be active to figure out what they need. Now, that will be determined really by where Max Fried is, where Kyle Wright is at the time, where the starting rotation is at the time. How well are they able to hold up? How well is the bullpen doing? but I believe this is a general manager that has shown he will be active. So when the trade deadline comes, we're going to be talking about that, because what are the biggest needs going to be? And we've seen just how quick these needs have changed. A week ago, we needed a starter. All of a sudden, we get one from within in Michael Soroka. Is he 100%? Is he ready to go? All we really know is that he's healthy, but it's better than where we were last week. I think the real necessity now is the bullpen. So we'll see, but we will see. Let's see. Robert G. Can't wait till we figure out left field in the offseason. It's been a good run, Eddie, but it's time. I do have to mention, he made a spectacular catch yesterday. I know there's been a lot of talk about Michael Harris's catch the other day, but Eddie made a really good catch that I don't think a lot of people saw coming. I didn't think he had it, and Peter Moylan didn't think he had it in the booth. So I did want to mention that. Eddie's been really good defensively. Look, he's a lot better at the plate this year than he was last year. If he was this for the past 2 years, I think it would have been much more I think fans would have responded to it a lot better. But he has been a lot better this year, and of course we all remember what he did in 2021 when it mattered. He kills the Dodgers. But aside from that, do the Braves stick with Eddie? Maybe. They stuck with Orlando Arcia, and, you have to realize that. When it comes to offense, I never expected Eddie Rosario to carry the offense. I expected Eddie Rosario to do his part and to keep up the, on-base percentage, be the guy that sets up Austin Riley or Matt Olson or even Acuna. When we signed him, I'll be honest with you, I was excited about it. That was the guy that I thought the Braves should sign over Jock Peterson, over Jorge Soler. And a lot of you guys are probably going, what? But no, that's what I thought, because I thought he fits in better. He's a better defender than both of those guys I just mentioned. And, I really expected the stats to be a little higher. Now, that said, I think what Eddie's done this year has fit in fine. I think it's actually been a pretty good year for Eddie, more like what we saw before last season, at least on the back of the baseball card. A lot of people might disagree with that, but I think he's been fine. I think it could be better. Do I think the Braves could go out and get a left fielder? Sure. I think they could find a left fielder from within if Vaughn Grissom could make that transition. Not saying that I want that to happen. I'm just saying it's an option. But no, in terms of figuring out left field, that's a possibility. It's certainly not going to be figured out at the trade deadline, I don't think. Although Alex Anthopoulos has proven me wrong before, I think the main mission at the trade deadline is going to be pitching in some form or fashion. Definitely bullpen. And I think there's guys out there more so than starting pitching, because starting pitching is the toughest thing to acquire, really, because everybody needs it. Everybody doesn't. Not everybody has it. It's just one of the toughest commodities come by. You can get a bat, for a reasonable trade package. Starting pitching, they're going to want, your arm and your leg. They're going to want it all to get where they need to be. If you're giving up starting pitching, you're essentially giving up not only this season, but possibly the seasons that follow, the next 2 or 3. Because it's going to take you a long time to regenerate the starting pitching that you lost in that transaction. So keep that in mind. You're going to have to get starting pitching from a seller. In terms of who could be a seller, the guys we're playing right now, the A's. Maybe there's a reliever on the A's that, we've made deals with them before that have turned out pretty good. That's where you got to look, those guys. The teams that aren't doing well. I don't know how the White Sox are doing now, but of course a few years ago they weren't doing very well at all. A few years ago I flirted with the idea of the Braves going to get Brian Reynolds, although the Pirates had a death grip on him. So anytime you talk about trades, you're not going to trade with a team that's going to compete. You're not going to trade with a team that has a chance to make it to the playoffs. That's one of the problems with the expanded playoff. As fun as it is, as for fans to just sit down and watch baseball all weekend, I love that aspect of it, but it makes teams more competitive, which isn't a bad thing when you think about it. But it makes the trade deadline a little less booming. It doesn't make it near as how do I put this? It doesn't make it near as fluid. There's not as much movement at the trade deadline. There's not as much deals happening. There's just not. And, you know, what it reminds me of, when people say, hey, let's just make a trade. I had a conversation with somebody the other day, and they're like, hey, like, we just need to trade for starting pitching. It's not that easy. And if you don't believe me, go look. And there's a few different criteria you got to look at. Go look at teams that, number one, are out of it. Like, they're not going to compete. They're too far out of their division. They're too far out of the wild card. Go look for teams that have starting pitching. And go look for teams that need something that we have excess of. When I say excess, I mean we have too much of. You could argue we have too many outfielders. But that said, the Braves don't have excess of a ton of stuff. And what I mean by that is we don't have anything that we just want to get rid of, right? We don't have pitching that we just want to get rid of, at least pitching that's good. We don't have offense that we want to get rid of. We don't have prospects, and that's really the key one. We don't have prospects that we can afford to get rid of right now. So teams, that makes it really hard to trade with. So really just the first two criteria make it difficult. Is there a team that's out of it? Well, the earlier the season, the tougher that is to find, because the earlier in the season you are, it's going to be really hard to find teams that are out of it, because there's very few that honestly are out of it. So we'll see what happens. I mean, there's a long ways to go before the trade deadline. I know I've been rambling on, so forgive me, but there's really, there is a ton. I see some of you guys are suggesting a name. It looks like Ursig. Well, I'll have to look that up. Hang on a second. I'll answer a couple questions. While I do that, I'll look him up. Robert G. Robert G has a super chat. Wow, timed that up good. Do you think Shoemaker or Grissom goes with Arcia? Sign. I'm not sure what you're asking me there, but it's a super chat, so just put it below. I want to answer your question. Do I think Shoemaker or Grissom goes with Arcia? Sign. I don't know what you're asking me. If you can reword it for me, Robert G, I'll do my best to answer it for you, okay? Trade. Okay. With Arcia signed. Okay, gotcha. Do I think Shoemaker or Grissom goes with Arcia signed? Well, I think... Oh, you're good. You're good. No, I appreciate the question. Do I think Shoemaker Grissom traded with Arcia signed for a couple of years as a trade piece? Okay, yeah, I can answer this. Well, I never want to say, like, so-and-so is going to get traded. But there's certainly reason to believe that both of those guys could be potential trade bait. I didn't say they are trade bait. They're potential trade bait. The situation kind of shows, like, hey, here they are. They're not signed long-term. They're prospects, and they're valuable both right now to other teams that could use them in the future. And, yeah, I definitely think they both could be gone. Does that mean they will be? No. Grissom's a good bat. I think he could be a good left fielder. Shoemaker's a great glove at shortstop. Arcia, as good as he's been, isn't somebody that any of us thought before this year that he could be the guy to replace Dansby Swanson. So there's a lot to think about there. I certainly think the situation calls for a trade possibility, at least with one of them. In a trade package, that's tough, because I don't know that a team would want both of them. Like I think about the White Sox, who I think are losing Tim Anderson at the end of the year, if I'm not mistaken. But I think about the White Sox, and I'm like, do they want both of those guys? And if they do, what can we get for them, right? Let me make sure I got my facts straight before I say anything. Tim Anderson, let's look at him. So, signed through 2023. Yeah, he's got a team option next year. Very well could be gone. It's not. He's a free agent in 2024. So he's got the 24 team option. I assume they'll stick with him. But as bad as they've done so far this year, they may decide to go rebuild. If I'm the White Sox, I keep Tim Anderson, but I'm not the White Sox. But there's teams like that need middle infielders, but I don't know if they need two of them. And I guess that's my point there. They have a few pieces they can trade. Those are certainly two of them. Could they be like, that's the tough part, because ideally they're in a trade package together and we get something really good, right? That's the idea. But you may have to separate them and maybe accompany them with somebody else and ship out. It's really a tough thing to put together. But yes, the answer to your question is yes, I think both of them could be traded, because let's be real, they've both had major league showcases. I mean, we've seen Grissom over the past 2 seasons. We've seen Shoemaker a little bit this season, and they both display well. They both have come out and played fairly well, at least for Grissom offensively, and for Shoemaker a little bit of both. Now, you could argue that with saying, like, why would someone want a shortstop that can't field? But, I think ultimately a lot of people are going to look at Grissom and realize there's a lot of talent there. So, yeah, I think they could be traded. I think if I'm going to trade Grissom, I'm going to trade him for bullpen piece, ideally. Shoemaker, too. I mean, if you can get a really good bullpen piece, a Raisel Iglesias type that like we got with the Angels a few years ago, that's what I would do. But in terms of do I see Grissom gone, I don't know. Like, it's tough to really say that, because the Braves have really bought in to this idea of him developing and really being good. But make no mistake, if the right deal were to come in front of Alex Anthopoulos, I think he takes it. I don't think there's any commitment there. They haven't signed Grissom long-term. They haven't made this deal with him. They haven't said that they really want him. And I think if he was a good defender, I think he would have already gotten that. But, yeah, I definitely think once trade deadline comes around, you could see him gone. Does that mean he is gone? No, I am no expert. I'm just telling you what I think it looks like from the outside. But, yeah, I mean, in terms of your question, I think it very well could be possible. By the way, guys, do me a favor, like the video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell for notifications if you like the Braves, if you like Braves baseball. Really would help me out and help the channel grow. That is the best way to make it grow and get this video more out there and make the conversation just that much better. Let's talk to, let's see, Robert G. Bullpens year over year have so much variance. People forget Dylan Lee and Matzik are both out. I don't deny that. Matzik being out is certainly a problem, but that's a front office problem. That's not an on-the-field issue. The on-the-field questions I have are multiple because, and I don't mean snicker. I'm not talking, a lot of people, when the bullpen doesn't do well, they instantly go blame the manager. Those people don't know what they're talking about. The bullpen, you're right, has a lot of variance. They have a lot of ups and downs. It's just natural. But I would also say the on-the-field stuff, here's what I mean. AJ Minter, not doing well. Joe Jimenez, not doing well. Kirby Yates hasn't turned to be what the Braves thought he would. There are issues like that that I have problems with and reason to believe that the Braves could go another way. Does that mean they will? No. But that's what I mean. The front office could have never planned for Dylan Lee to be out, for Tyler Matzik to be out, right? And it's not their fault. You can't plan stuff like that. They couldn't have planned for Raisel Iglesias to be out at the beginning of the year. So it's tough they don't have a crystal ball telling them who's going to get hurt. But on the same token, it's also we need more options now. It's not nobody's fault. It's just, okay, well, this isn't working. Once the trade deadline comes around, we got to be active. Let's see. Bravos. Yeah, if you're giving up runs to the Athletics, you got to go unless your name is Soroka. Yeah, I mean, it's two different standards. I'm not going to lie to you at all because, I mean, but it's also this. Soroka gave up 5 hits across 6 innings. One of them happened to be a 3-run homer that Nova ran into, whatever his name was. I don't necessarily mind that for a starter, but when you're a bullpen guy and you're coming in, no offense to Oakland, but when you're coming in to face the A's and you throw 1/3 of an inning and give up 3 earned runs, you got to think Noda, thank you. You got to think the Braves are looking at that going, I don't know how are you going to compete when more competing teams come in? Let's see. There are 2 Michaels and 2 AJs now. Michael Soroka, Michael Harris, and now AJ Minter and AJ Smith-Shawver. Yeah, good point. Nicholas says, I've been talking about him all year. Not that I was actually expecting him to come up. Well, that's the thing, right? Like, that's the biggest thing. Like, I've heard about this guy all year long, AJ Smith-Shawver, whether you've brought him up, Nicholas, or whether, multiple others have brought him up. I mean, guys, really, there's some of you that follow the Gwinnett Braves and the AA Braves, maybe because you live there. I don't have that luxury. But you guys see these guys a lot more regular than I do. I hear about them. I see them on Twitter. I see little clips. But I don't watch their games. I don't have time. No offense to these guys. I don't have a lot of time to watch these games. I wish I did. Because I'd be a lot more educated on who these guys are when they come up. Maybe I need to find the time. I don't know. We'll see. But there's a lot of you guys that bring these guys up to me and want to know what I think about it. And I can only tell you really from an outsider perspective what I see. I can tell you that he's a right-handed pitcher. He was drafted in the 7th round. He's the number 4 prospect for the Braves. But what impressed me about AJ was his ability to move up so quickly, because that's what's abnormal. I can tell you that he's got a 109 ERA. I'll be honest with you, and I'm sure some of you share this sentiment. When you're talking about ERA in the minors, it's so, like, it's just not going to be what the majors stats mean, right? Like, stats in the minors are very fluctuant. However, when you have a 12.3 strikeout per 9, that's pretty outstanding, right? Like, that, you're the outlier. When you have a 3.3 walk per 9 to accommodate that, not to mention you've moved up from high A to double A to triple A in the span of a month and a half, all the way up to the majors, you're really going to catch my attention. And AJ Smith has done that. So AJ Smith-Shawver, let me confirm. Yeah, I mean, the guy has been outstanding. And he's 20 years old. So we'll see how his career develops. I'm looking forward to possibly seeing him tonight. And I think he very well could. We're going to skip down a little bit because we're going to wrap this up fairly soon. I know the Bally pregame show is coming on here in a minute. We don't want to overrun on that. They're probably already on. Or 20 minutes. I got 20 minutes. So that's how much time we have. We're going to try to answer as many questions as we can. Thank you guys for tuning in tonight. Really do appreciate it. And remember, like the video, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell for notifications so that you can stay up to date with everything going on here at On Deck and, of course, with your Atlanta Braves. And remember, Super Chats do get your priority in the chat. Joe Reese says, I don't think Soroka struggled. He made one pitch that wasn't that bad of a pitch. He only threw 83 pitches in 6 innings. He probably could have went 8. The offense didn't help him out either. Yeah, my buddy texted me last night. He sent me a meme, and it was, I don't know how to explain this, but it was Patrick Starr in a dark room looking at the wall, like in the corner, like a little kid. I guess after Soroka gave up the 3-run homer and the loss or whatever may have you. Anyway, I said what you just said to him then is, well, the offense didn't exactly help him out. I mean, we're playing the A's. The offense has got to be better than that, especially knowing that Soroka's on the mound, right? That said, no, I think you're absolutely right. I didn't think he was struggling. He looked great. He didn't look like he was in any pain, which is good. He didn't look like he was breathing heavy. He really looked good. The only thing he looked like to me was in the dugout every time they cut to him. He was drinking water and pacing. That was what I saw. But that's to be expected. But yeah, 83 pitches across 6 innings. I mean, that's what we'd like to see. And I think we're going to see much more of that. And hopefully it's against much better teams than Oakland. I mean, he gave up the 3-run homer, but I mean, that's not giving up 5 hits in an inning. That's giving up a walk, a dinker hit, and then giving up a blast. On a pitch, like you said, that wasn't that bad of a pitch. It just got ran into, really. So that's my takeaway as well, Joe. So I appreciate the comment. Let's see. Vision says bullpen or starter, just good news for the pitching staff. Hoping to begin bullpen though. Vision gave me a nice comment the other night. I didn't get on. It was after the Braves lost, I think on Saturday, if I'm not mistaken. I think I was at work. She's like, "Oh, I wish you were on tonight. I need some baseball therapy." So, Vision, I hope we can do that for you tonight. Although I hope the Braves make your day better later on tonight. Thank you for tuning in, and always love to see her tuning in. Love to see all you guys tuning in. But Vision's a regular, so thank you for tuning in. Let's see. Jake Hobby says Soroka looked pretty good for being out 3 years. I mean, look, he looked better than I looked, and I've been out of the game for a few years myself. Yeah, he looked great. I mean, on a serious note, he looked great. I think he's going to be just fine, and it's such a relief because you always fear the worst, when something like this happens because he's been down every obstacle you can go down. And I just didn't want to see another one. So we'll see. Joe Reese says, do you think Dodd will be used in a trade if AA makes a trade in July? He could, although I don't know if you want to mess with the starting pitching depth right now just because you're down so much. I do think the 5 they have are the 5 that they're going to roll with, but you always want to have the ability to turn to someone like Dylan Dodd. Do I think that AA could trade him? Yeah. I think if Fried or Wright came back healthy, ready to go, you could, but you also don't want to mess with your depth for later in the season. Maybe Dodd becomes a bullpen arm like we're watching AJ Smith-Shawver be. He could be a trade piece, though. You're absolutely right. I don't deny that. The one guy that I don't believe will be in the trade would be Jared Schuster. I think Jared Schuster is too high of a draft pick. He's been the guy that the Braves have kind of raised. I think Dodd would be gone before Schuster. Do I think they'll trade him? Tough to say, but it could. I'm not going to say that it's impossible, but I certainly think the possibility is there. But I also think that, I don't know. I definitely think the possibility is there. Let's see. Yeah, Jake, I don't know what's going on with your messages, buddy. You need to get that looked at. I'm not doing it, so I don't know. Let's see. Jake says, you see Angels had a pitcher who threw 102. Could he locate? That would be what Leo Mazzoni would say. Could he locate it? He can throw 102, but could he locate it? We'll see. I mean, I don't know him, but I'll definitely check it out when I can. Let's see. Lucas Ursig. I meant to look this up a minute ago, so I need to. I'm looking at him now. Give me just a second. Lucas Ursig. So he's the bullpen guy that the whole chat is circling. This is the guy we need to go get. Well, let's take a look. It looks like he's in the minors, is he not? Let's see. Yeah, he's in the minors if I'm not. No, hang on. I can't find his stats anywhere. All right, let's try this one. Lucas Ursig. He is with the Brewers? What team? No, he's with the A's, but he's in the majors. Okay. Baseball Reference has got his picture with the Brewers. He must have just got to the A's. Yeah, he's got a 1.29 ERA, but he's only through 5 games, 7 innings. He pitched last night. He must have looked great. I didn't see it because I'm going to be honest with you, after Soroka pitched, I kind of tuned out. He's got 10 strikeouts. Yeah, I mean, if he's got an arm, you could probably get him for not that much. Wait a minute. Robert G., is that true? He was a Brewers third baseman last year? He was drafted by the Brewers in the second round of the 2016 MLB draft. That's interesting. I didn't know that. Yeah, I need to educate myself on this guy. Look, Lucas Ursig, keep an eye out for him. You never know. It looked like he was excellent last night in the A's relief pen. Ursig. Okay, I'll have to keep that in mind. Ursig. Around trade deadline, we'll take a look at his stats then and see what kind of numbers we're talking about. Yosemite says Braves got pieces if AA is willing to part with him. Hot take Hilliard on the table. Guy plays left field. Who doesn't play left field? Trade for pieces now, then shed payroll over the next 2 seasons. Yeah. I mean, I think what you would be trading for would more so be bullpen. I mean, we just talked about Ursic. I don't know that it'll be Ursic, but I'm just saying I think it would be bullpen pieces. I don't think it would necessarily be, guys that I guess would shave payroll. I don't know for sure. I don't think you're going to trade any of the guys that are making big bucks. You could potentially trade Ozuna. That idea is out there. I don't know that the Braves would do it at this point because he's actually finally starting to be worth what he's getting paid. Although he looked a little rough last night. But I definitely think that there's definitely trade pieces out there, but it's not the trade pieces that I think you guys are flirting with. In my mind, trade pieces right now, if I'm just looking at this with no preference whatsoever, you're talking Dylan Dodd, Vaughn Grissom, Braden Shoemake. You know what? I'll go with you. I would say Hilliard is a trade option because since Harris got back and since everybody's good to go. I mean, when was the last time we saw Hilliard? And that's just me being honest. I mean, when was the last time we saw Hilliard play when Harris was in the lineup? So I don't know. But that's the kind of trade pieces I think the Braves have is Dylan Dodd, Vaughn Grissom, Braden Shoemake, and Sam Hilliard. Are there others? Sure, but those are the names that are going to make you kind of go, oh, yeah, I mean, we could get something for that. For the prospects, I mean, maybe. I'm not going to say that. He's debuting tonight. I mean, maybe, but I don't see that necessarily right now. I think it's going to be guys that you don't need to compete with right now. And let's be real, Dylan Dodd, with all the starting pitching that the Braves have shown so far this year, Dylan Dodd is not going to be someone who we turn to by preference alone. It's going to be someone we turn to when someone's hurt, right? Now, there's value in that, but he is a potential trade piece for that reason. Vaughn Grissom is a trade piece because you can get something back for him right now. If he's not the shortstop of the future, which Arcia is signed for 2 or 3 years, I think 3. If he's not your shortstop of the future, then you don't need him. Same goes for Braden Shoemake. And for Sam Hilliard, he's a guy who came up, had a great new start, to his year, and all of a sudden Michael Harris is ready to go, and he's gone, right? So he could provide value in a lot of places. I definitely think if the Braves are looking to trade him, they're going to need to put him out there more. But we'll keep an eye on it. We do have a Super Chat Trip block. Thanks for tuning in, Trip. Thanks for Super Chatting. Remember, Super Chats do get you pushed to the front of the line. He says, you think the new kid pitches tonight? Well, if you're asking me, it's hard to know because he is a bullpen piece. It's all about what Snit wants to turn to. I think, yeah. I mean, it depends on the score. I don't think in a high leverage situation they're going to turn to him. Although I could be wrong. I think it's going to be more so if the Braves are up by 3, down by 3, whatever the case may be, similar to what you saw Letke do last night. Just keep us in the game, kid. Keep it rolling, whatever the case may be. I don't think it's going to be something where they want to put a ton of pressure on him, but I could be wrong. But yeah, I mean, I'll throw it out there. Sure, is it worth staying up tonight to find out? I would say so. They're of course coming on very late, but I'm staying up for it. Let's see. Yosemite says, if Soroka looks good over the next 2 starts, Dodd or Schuster can be on the table, especially if Smith-Shawver looks good. Well, remember, Smith is probably going to start in the pen and probably going to be in the pen for a while. Just keep that in mind. If he does look good, I think Dodd is on the table. I'm not going to say Schuster is on the table, but I think Dodd very well could be. Let's see. Robert G says Braves need to go steal that A's reliever from last night, throwing 99 miles per hour sinkers. He was impressive. I got to go look at the tape now. Everybody in here is saying that he was great. Again, I didn't stay up and watch it all. I was honestly at work getting ready for a broadcast, so forgive me. But yeah, I mean, the A's, to be fair to them, shut us down last night. You gotta give them the credit. I mean, they shut down a very good offense with the Braves. Guys, remember, please do like the video. It helps get it out there and does a lot to support the channel. So please remember to like the video. Thank you all for tuning in so far. We're only going to be on for a few more minutes, depending. We'll see how the audience is. I don't have anywhere to be, but if you guys all turn it over to Bally, I got to get off of here. So let's see. Coley says, obviously, this is going to be an area that will get better come the trade deadline. AA honestly came in this year with an improved bullpen per stats. Just didn't work out, and look how quick he's worked. Yeah, I mean, that's really the art of it, right? Because you can put together the best team on paper. The thing is, it's a gamble. Everything in building a team is a gamble because, number one, you don't know who's going to get hurt. You don't know who is actually going to have a good year. And bullpens, historically, aren't necessarily like good in back-to-back years like this. I mean, it doesn't always work out that way. It really, for the most part, doesn't work out that way. It's rare that you see that. And sometimes it does, but it's rare to keep it steady for multiple years because there's so much movement in it, right? There's so many guys in it. It doesn't always turn out to be that the guys that were really good last year are really good this year. Sometimes you have guys who have good years, then a bad year, then a good year, and then a bad year. You know, I mean, that's just the fact of the matter. There are guys out there that I think the Braves can get. The good news is the starting pitching is kind of mellowed out. The starting pitching problem has kind of mellowed out. However, it's been replaced with a bullpen issue. That is an issue that is a lot more easily solved, I believe, than starting pitching, because if it was starters, you're going to have to pretty much give up your prospect capital for a starting pitcher. Because think about what it would take out of those four guys that I mentioned, Dylan Dodd, Vaughn Grissom, Braden Shoemaker, and Sam Hilliard. It very well may take all four to get a good starting pitcher on a decent deal, right, to make that trade. It may take all of your prospect capital to land that, or at least all of your prospect capital that's worth anything. So you don't always want to make that trade because that could invalidate a later trade. It could make a trade that you were going to make this year. It could take all of your trade pieces out of it. And pieces mean something. It's not just, oh, you know, these three prospects that we traded, are these three prospects really good prospects? Are they prospects that could benefit you in the future, or are they prospects that you don't need, right? So it's just a matter of, you know, ultimately, what's it going to turn into? And if you've ever heard in football, you know, like halftime adjustments, right? What is the team going to do at halftime to adjust to do better in the second half? Same thing happens in baseball. It's just over the course of 6 months, right? For the first 3 months, the team may struggle in this department. But if at halftime they can improve the bullpen, they can have a much better second half and maybe even a better playoff run, right? Or postseason run, right? That's what it is. So, you know, we'll see. We'll see. It's going to be very fun to watch, though. Jake, Braves fan. Well, he's got it in his username. He must really be a Braves fan. What's going to happen to Braves broadcast with Bally bankruptcy happening? You know, that's a great question. It's a question that, I'll be honest with you, I don't know the answer to. I assume they're going to keep going on and until someone buys them. I don't really know the ins and outs of that. And until I work for them, you know, it doesn't really bother me. I like the Fox Sports, you know, I like Bally. Whatever they got the Braves on it, I'm watching it. That's kind of the way I treat it. But well, it's going to be aired this year. I mean, like, they're not going anywhere this year, I don't believe. Framework says the Braves not scoring runs in the middle innings is just bizarre to me over the last couple of years. Well, guys, let's be real, because a few years ago, the Braves were all scoring. They were scoring all the runs in the late innings, and everybody hated it, right? Everybody was like, man, if we could just score some runs in the early innings, you know, we'd be good. That was about 2019. Everybody was just, man, I wish we could score some runs in the early innings. It would make my day just really a lot easier. But the truth is, we just want to score runs, period. Now they're scoring all of them early, and then they go silent in the middle innings. It's just, it's tough to gauge how much, you know, where you want the innings. We got a super chat from Joseph Alvarez. He's a regular guy, regular supporter. Thank you for that. Remember, super chats do put you in the front of the line. And Joseph, he says, trade Ozuna Rosario for Jazz Chisholm Jr. Okay, hang on. I'm gonna do it since you super chatted and you're so nice about it. I'm gonna do a deep dive for you because everybody wants Jazz, right? Jazz would be your shortstop at that point. I would assume. Ozzy stay at second. I don't do. Everybody always wants to pull up that trade value thing. Like, does that? That's not everything. It's just not, and everybody treats that like it's Bible. But there's a lot more to it than just, is this an equal trade? Right? Because does this fit the organization? Does this mean, everything to the organization? Number one, I do want to mention that we're talking about a trade with the Marlins here, which isn't crazy to think. I mean, we traded for Duvall a few years ago. He is signed through 2023. He is a free agent in 2027. So right there, you got a problem. Because the Marlins are, let me see where they are. I believe they're still in second, tied with the Mets, but I'm going to make sure. They may be in third or maybe even second alone. They are second, so they're in second place, all alone, 4 games back. They're not going to trade for Ozuna and Rosario right now for one of their best players. Also, just long-term thinking, as much as I would absolutely love to have Jazz Chisholm, long-term thinking here for the Marlins, you're talking about a guy that you have signed to a really cheap deal, still a rookie deal, through 2027, a guy that could play for you through 2027 and pack the stadium. I say pack the stadium very loosely there. Bring fans to the stadium, sell jerseys, that kind of thing. He's electric. He's on the cover of MLB The Show. I mean, kids love him. I mean, that's what Jazz Chisholm is. You can have him through 2027, or you can trade and have Ozuna through 2025 and have Rosario through the end of this year. Do they really believe that this is their year to get rid of a guy that's as electric as Jazz Chisholm is to get Ozuna or Rosario? They could, but I don't believe that's where they're at. They're still in a rebuild phase. I believe under the right, conditions, the Marlins could be very good, maybe better than, they're doing better than the Mets right now. So no, I don't think that will happen. I think it's unlikely. Could it happen? Sure. But I don't think so. It would take the Marlins making, honestly, a dumb move for their organization. I think it'd be great for the Braves because they'd be losing Ozuna, who we've had our ups and downs with over the past few years. We'd be losing Rosario, who we're losing at the end of the year anyway, at least to free agency. He could re-sign. We're losing Ozuna after next year. So the Braves are losing really not a lot to get a really good starting shortstop for 2 position players who you could replace on the Braves very easily. Ozuna, darno, that easy. DH, right? At least, or whoever's not catching that day could be the DH. Sam Hilliard could be the DH. DH is a very easily replaced thing, right? You could solve it at the deadline, too, if you wanted to. For Rosario, again, Sam Hilliard, left field. Or just whoever. To get Jazz Chisholm, you could do a lot. But again, I don't think the Marlins, unless you accompany that with someone like Dylan Dodd or Jared Schuster, there's nothing to benefit them in that trade. It's not a terrible idea, but again, I think they would need a lot more in that trade to convince them, hey, give up this season, forget it, give up Jazz Chisholm being your star player and take this trade, right? They need something really good to accompany them. Like long-term control from multiple players. And really, Jazz Chisholm's one of their few bats. They don't have a ton of offense on that team. So that's what I would tell you. I think it's kind of wishful thinking. Maybe a little too wishful, but not. Look, I would love it. I'm not going to lie to you. Sitting here, I would love Jazz Chisholm in a Braves uniform. Maybe one day. But I think it's going to be a long ways away, and I don't think it'll happen in a trade. I think it'll happen in free agency, if it ever does. Frey Morg says, the Braves not scoring runs. Oh, I already answered that question. Sorry about that. Let's see. Robert G., how bad do Ozzy's splits need to be before the Braves tell him to revisit hitting right-handed? His on-base percentage is like .224, which is rough. He looks lost at the plate left-handed, 95-point split over his career. Yeah, I mean we've talked about this a lot, and look, I am no hitting expert. Okay, I can tell you what I see. You can tell me what you see. I'll be honest with you. I see it very similar to you. We pulled up the metrics the past couple of streams. I don't think it would be a bad thing if he did it, but also realize switch hitting is one of the toughest things to do in baseball. Chipper Jones spoiled us. He was very good at it. He was, I mean, one of the best ever at it, right? But even Chipper will tell you that there were times where he'd hit really good righty, not so good lefty, really good lefty, not so good righty, and he'd have to work on it. It's double the work. It's really tough. So if you do have that skill in any capacity, you should probably use it. However, we've seen the numbers. They don't show that it's benefiting. But also realize I don't know how well he would hit against righty-righty, right, or lefty-lefty. I don't know how well he would do there. I think he does great right-handed. I mean, the numbers show it. The eye test sees it. But it's tough to say that that's going to benefit him completely. And he obviously feels better hitting against, opposite pitching on that side, because if he didn't, he wouldn't do it. So it's tough to say. I definitely think if it continues on the trend it's going to happen. In terms of when, I don't know. Let's see. Jake Hobby says, I would like Soler if he is available, but right now I don't think Miami wants to get rid of him. No, they don't want to get rid of him. Could they? Sure, if you throw it. I think Ozuna Rosario would actually be a fairly good trade for Jorge Soler. More so than Jazz Chisholm, because you don't have that long-term control in the way. You get a DH, which is what Soler is, really. And you get a really good left fielder. I don't know if they need that, but I think it's a good trade. If you traded Ozuna and a starting pitcher, they may trade Soler. Am I telling you that to get you hopeful? No, but I'm telling you that could happen. That is more likely than Ozuna Rosario for Jazz Chisholm, because, again, Soler is only signed through 2024. So he's a free agent at the end of next year, I believe. So that is more doable. I mean, he's Ozuna, essentially. So you'd have to give them Ozuna. He's a better Ozuna, I mean, statistically speaking, over the past 2 years. But you'd have to give them Ozuna and something. And I think Ozuna and Rosario would be something. But I think Ozuna and a prospect like Vaughn Grissom or Braden Shoemake really may sweeten the deal. Or maybe even Dylan Dodd. I mean, something like that, could get you Soler. I don't know if they want to do that, but they could. And Ozuna's, played for Miami before. They know him well, so it all kind of depends on, it's all dependent on where Marlins want to take it. So, let's see. Miguel says the Braves have at least 2 lefty hitters who can put the ball in play. The reason that the Braves are the worst team in scoring position because we're missing Freeman and Swanson. They were clutch hitters. Clutch is a tough one, right? Because there is something to being clutch. I mean, there is something to that. I mean, we've seen those players over the years. One of my favorites is David Ortiz. I think he's the most clutch player of all time. However, in terms of because we've lost Freeman and Swanson, I think that's a little unfair, because you have a guy named Ronald Acuna who's hitting the freaking, hitting the cover off the ball right now. You have Olsen, who's hitting really well. He's got, 3 homers in the past 2 games? So it's tough for me to really say that. And in terms of Swanson, Orlando Arcia has been really good there. So you've replaced him with really good hitters. In terms of the clutchness, I don't know if I'm willing to go there, because how valuable of a stat is that? What's your average? What's your average with runners in scoring position? I don't know where you go with the stat there. There is something to it. I won't deny that. But I'm not going to say because we're missing Freddie and Dansby that's the case. I don't think that's the case. Joe Reese says, AA said when Soroka came up, he's up to stay. When Fried and Wright returned, who are the odd guys out? We talked about this the other day. We talked about this in the video I did about Soroka coming back. That dropped yesterday morning, I believe. So that's tough, right? Because, and I'm going to write this out to make sure I get it. You have Strider, Morton, Elder, who's not going anywhere, Schuster, and now Soroka. I mean, it's tough because you have Wright and Fried. I mean, I don't want to jinx anything, but if someone were to get hurt, you'd be fine. The problem is, I think Schuster's the obvious one guy out. Right? Schuster, as good as he's pitched, once you get Wright or Fried back, Schuster's probably gone. If Soroka's pitching well. If he's not, that's an easy one too. But if Soroka's pitching well, you have Strider, who's not going anywhere. Morton, not going anywhere. Elder, if he's pitching like this, not going anywhere. And then Soroka, who they've said they don't want to go anywhere. Do you go to a 6-man rotation? I don't know. That'll be a problem for another day, and it's a really good problem to have. Depth is always a good thing. You could put one of them in long relief if you wanted to, but it's going to be really tough. That's why AJ Smith-Shawver is not going to be a starter, to start out, in my opinion. Let's see. Good question, though. Very good question. It was a question that I have for the Braves, if I'm honest with you. Let's see. A lot of you guys active in the chat tonight. Really do appreciate it. Remember to like the video and, of course, follow the channel. Really would appreciate that. And, of course, hit the bell for notifications so that you know next time we go live and so you can be a part of the conversation as well. I've lost track of where we were in the chat. Forgive me. There we go. Jake Hobby says, I think Oakland and KC are not going to be playing for a playoff spots, and White Sox are 10.5 out of wild card. Yeah, I mean, there's a few teams like that are out of it. There's definitely a few of them that are out of it. Oakland, KC, or some, and of course the White Sox. I mean, there are some teams where you can look for, like, okay, who would I want on this team? Right? And I'm sure Alex Anthopoulos is on it. But you can do that yourself. You can go to those teams and say, okay, who are the guys that, we want from this squad? Some of you guys mentioned the pitcher from Oakland last night. Maybe. But there's a lot of those that are out there on other teams. Go look at the team. That's where, if I'm advising you to where you can find those guys that are going to be available come trade deadline, you have to start at the teams that aren't competing anymore, because those are the guys that are going to be selling. So we'll see. We do have a super chat, though, from one of my favorites, Vision Music Works. Speaking of Clutch, anything else on Culberson? Charlie Clutch. Charlie Culberson, we were all excited because he was back with the Braves. Hasn't done a ton. I can kind of look up what he's done real quick. In terms of what I've heard on him, nothing. Like someone below said, he's just sitting on the bench right now. But look, I mean, he's there. He can do something at some point. It's going to be tough. As a guy who's a huge Charlie Culberson fan, I'm just happy he's back with the team. In terms of what he has done this year with Atlanta, has he even made an appearance at the plate? Because Baseball Reference doesn't have anything for 2023. Nothing. Okay, so, he's waiting for an opportunity, and hopefully he'll get one. That's all I got for you. I wish I had more for you, Vision, but that's all I got for you. Let's see. Richard Davis, whoever is not pitching good will be the odd man out. Wright won't be back until August. Yeah, we have some time. We have some time before you have to worry about, where this is going to go. But it does set up a conversation, right, Richard? I mean, you gotta address the fact that there is going to be 6 starting pitchers on your roster. None of them are tradable in the sense, right? You're not going to trade Strider, Elder, Morton, Schuster, Soroka. You have to kind of address it at some point. But it's also, how do you address it? Because it's whoever's not pitching well is going to go down. But again, Strider's not going down. You got him signed to too much money. Morton's not going down. You got him signed to too much money. Soroka, they just said, it's not going down. If he's not pitching well, it's different. But, Elder's the National League ERA leader. If he's, assuming he's still pitching this well, or even if it's mildly below where he's at right now, you have to assume that he's still going to be there. so from there, I mean, it really becomes kind of fishy because Schuster, again, kind of obvious, right? I mean, he's the guy that they're going to go with. He doesn't have the experience for the postseason. But it could also be a really good weapon, in the postseason, because if you have 6 guys, you can have a starter come in relief. I mean, there's a lot of things you could do with that. So in terms of, where we go from here, it's all positive. It's not bad. And it's not necessarily obvious that anybody's going to go down, because if I can have 6 guys on my rotation, you can really do a lot. You can experiment there, because you can pull a guy, out of the pen in long relief if you need to, even in the regular season, not just postseason, if you need to. And nobody's short on rest, right? So it'll be interesting. It'll be very interesting. I don't know if the Braves are going to do a 6-man rotation if that happens, but it'll be very, very interesting. Robert G. says, I wonder if the Cardinals ever inquired about Sean Murphy. They have so much more prospects than the Braves. They really missed on catcher. We are lucky. I'm going to be honest with you. I don't think they missed on catcher. I don't. I haven't really talked much about the Cardinals this year. I don't think the Cardinals missed on catcher. I know that was kind of the thought. Contreras wasn't carrying his load or whatever the case may be. I think that's all. I don't think that's fair to Contreras, because Contreras hasn't had a problem at all with other organizations. He was fine with Cubs. I just don't think it's fair to say that he's not very good. Wainwright even came out and defended him. So it's not, I don't think, fair to, how do I put this? That organization has been so dependent on Yadier Molina that all of a sudden they have a new guy with a new identity, new style. It's gonna go through growing pains, especially early in the season. The Cardinals have far more problems than their catcher. I just don't think it's fair. And that's not, I'm not a William Contreras fan. I'm not like a guy that's waving the banner for Contreras. I'm just telling you, there's more to it than one guy. And the Cardinals have so many issues. Catcher's their least of their worries, in my opinion. They're trying to make him a DH, then they're trying to make him an outfielder. I mean, who's really the issue? Just going to leave you with that. Let's see. Slinging slasher, SpongeBob reference. Acuna has been getting out a lot more lately. What's your take on that? Well, my take on it is it should be happening. But, it is what it is. Acuna is who he is. I think he's also a bigger threat than he was before. What I mean by that is I think teams are attacking him a lot more. I mean, everybody's aware how good he is. Everybody's aware what kind of stats he has. I definitely think he's, probably not getting the pitches he wants. He's got to be a little bit more selective at the plate. But the guy's hitting .327 on the year. He's got 11 homers. He's a great defender. He's back to health, his health. How many stolen bases does he have? 22 already? I mean, he could easily be, 30-30. He's already done that before. But he could push 40-40. If he goes on a tear and gets a few homers a few days in a row, he could easily get 40 stolen bases. And he already got 40 homers, didn't he, one time? I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. 37 stolen bases, 41 homers in 2019. That's the guy we have on the roster right now. And for perspective, he was caught stealing the most last year. So the leg is definitely better. Guys, in 2019, that was his best season by far so far. 2020 wasn't it for him. I mean, he led the league in runs scored. He led the league in plate appearances, too, with, ironically, 715. Stolen bases, 37. He led the league. He did not lead the league in homers, but anytime you have north of 40 homers, you're doing pretty good. He won the Silver Slugger that year. He won the Silver Slugger in 2020. He got the All-Stars in 2021 and 22. And he was a Rookie of the Year. In 2018. The guy is a star. So, yeah, he might be having a little bit, rough patch right now, but the guy will break out of it. I'm not worried about it. I've got a few more questions, and then we're getting out of here. Appreciate all you guys tuning in tonight. Remember, anytime something's going on with the Braves, we're on for the most part. So make sure you do like the video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell for notifications. We want to answer your questions, and we want you to be a part of the community here at On Deck. We got a pretty good one, so thank you guys for watching. Richard Davis says, I figured AJ would be up for the pin. He could throw 96, 98. That makes a difference, but it's also that off-speed stuff, right? I mean, the slider's been good for him. He's leading the league in strikeouts. You don't just get that, or not leading the league in strikeouts, but he's leading the minors in strikeouts per 9, at least for his age group. 12.3 strikeouts per 9. I mean, that's, as a 20-year-old, I don't care what part of the minors you're in. That's pretty good. Jake Hobby says, I'm wondering if he's taking it easy on his leg because he hasn't been running out groundouts like he used to. Yeah, that's fair, but I don't think it's because of the leg. I think it's just he's out. He knows it. Not to say that that's any better. I'm just saying I don't think there's any limit to his leg. If there was a play a week ago where he made like very similar to the play where he got hurt on in Miami, and he did it no hesitation, no anything. So I think he feels great. I don't think there's anything there. And he talks about it in interviews. He's like, I'm good. I feel better than I have in years. So I don't think that's that. I think it's just, if it's an obvious out, it's an obvious out. But I mean, look, when he's at his best, he's running out routine ground balls. So it's very interesting. Richard Davis, Braves need bullpen help. Maybe AJ is that fix. Maybe he is. Maybe he is for now. I think the trade deadline, is still something that the Braves are going to be heavily invested in and heavily looking at. I think that is a legit thing that the Braves are going to be active at the trade deadline. I just would not be surprised. Maybe before the trade deadline. Bravos 1, Acuna 2nd for MLB, and batting average 2nd and stolen bases 2. So as much as he's struggling, also realize this is a very good player, a really good player. And again, when he's at his best, there's nobody better, I don't think. And remember in 2020 he kind of gained some weight. Guys, he looks great. He's one of the best, there is. And, that's all you can ask for. So, on that note, guys, remember, tune in tonight. The Braves are getting started, I think, in a little over an hour. Late night start. They're on the West Coast. But remember, AJ Smith-Shawver just might get in the game. So, remember to tune in there. Remember to like the video, subscribe to the channel. Check out all our content on the channel. You really don't want to miss that. Also, check out our friends at FOCO. FOCO is a leading manufacturer in sports merchandise. They have merchandise for all your teams, all your entertainment venues, whether it be baseball teams, football teams, NFL, NBA, WWE, whatever the case may be, they got it. So go check out the merchandise from there. Go check out their new Spring Essentials line. They have shirts, hoodies, hats, swim trunks, flip-flops, whatever the case, they have it. They have anything you need with a Braves logo on it. So make sure to go check out our friends at FOCO. The link is down below. And remember, you can get 10% off your purchase when using the code ONDECK10. That's all we got for you tonight. Again, AJ Smith-Shawver. We're looking forward to seeing what he does in his career. But on that note, we're going to wrap it up. So thank you for tuning in. We'll see you next time right here at On Deck.
Baseball fans, make sure you like and share this video and subscribe to this channel. As always, thank you for your support.